Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is family business, and I'm pleased to introduce Meghan West. For the last 15 years, was CEO of Mastercam, a global leader in solutions and technology that solve manufacturing challenges. Founded in 1983 by her father, the company was recently acquired by Sandvik, a Swedish organization, and Meghan officially turned over the reins in February of this year. I was first introduced to her back in the day at Bentley University, where we both studied business with a focus on marketing and management, and very excited to have her on the show today.
Thank you, Anna. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So tell us, what was your family's vision for the company when it first was founded, and how has it changed since then?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, he always said we basically started off doing one thing and we continued to do that for 40 years. And that was to create tool paths that drive CNC machine tools. My dad was an engineer. He was an applications engineer. He was a machinist. So he understood machines and how they worked. And he realized that there was kind of a gap. Back in the day, he was doing manual machining, and that took a lot of time and effort. And if you made a mistake, if there was some kind of an error, it took a really long time to go back and figure out what that error was. So automated machining has absolutely changed not just manufacturing, but the world that we live in. You know, curves and, you know, back in the day, manual machining, it was really just about straight lines and very straight edges. But automated machining has allowed us to create parts that have, you know, much more complex features, which means that we get to have more complex products as well.
Wow. And then when you took over the organization, what were you doing to market your solutions?
So we've always, you know, manufacturing is kind of a niche. You know, it's if you're in the manufacturing world, you kind of know everybody. You know, we do a lot of trade shows, you know, obviously a website. You know, when I took over, this was 15 years ago, we were still doing print brochures and print ads and, you know, all sorts of kind of archaic marketing at the time. And, you know, interestingly, in the last couple of years, not a whole lot has changed other than the fact that we've got into a lot more, obviously, social media, more digital marketing, but, you know, trade shows are still very much a part of the manufacturing world and marketing ourselves. But, you know, I think really for us, we were so fortunate. The Mastercam brand name is so well known in the industry. You know, our marketing really came from our resellers, and they were on the ground and just selling the product and getting it out there.
So what were some of your favorite projects you worked on?
Well, you know, there's so many. You know, it's interesting. My dad started the company, and he was very much on the technical side. You know, he was a machinist. He loved playing with the product. And when I joined the company, you know, I at first I remember thinking, okay, I got to do what my dad does. And I realized pretty quickly that I was going to struggle if I tried to do that. You know, I had to figure out where I fit in, what kind of value I was going to bring. And I really brought value to, you know, the operations side of things, the organizational structure, employee engagement, you know, budgeting, financial, you know, constructs. And so, you know, I kind of dove into that side of things. I did a lot with creating a new structure for the company. I mean, we were 140 people when I took over, and when I left just a couple months ago, we were just shy of 300.
Wow.
And so, you know, I had to put a lot of structure in place to make sure that, you know, the company was scalable and that we would be able to continue to grow in an efficient way. So those are probably some of my big accomplishments. I you know, I loved getting employees engaged into not just the mission, but, you know, the entire culture of the company. And then I think one technical project that I really did enjoy, you know, again, when I came on, and I wasn't even running the company at this point, but when I came on board, the user interface was pretty outdated. And, you know, I thought, okay, we've got the next generation coming in to use the software. They need to use something that they can, you know, that they're familiar with,
right.
They can really interact with. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I pushed the ribbon bar, which at the time was kind of this innovative new way to look at things. You know, obviously Microsoft Word and, you know, products like that were using the ribbon. So that was a big project. I pushed hard to get it done in a very short period of time, but it changed how our users interacted with our software.
Wow. So you talked a little bit about your mission and the values of your company. So what does it mean to be a family business for you? And what was your purpose-driven plan?
Well, I think a company tends to take on the personality of its leaders. And in the case of our company, it did very much that. My father and his two brothers really were the leaders of the company for 30 years. And, when I joined on, it was very apparent that the company felt like home for me, because it took on the values of them. And their values were work hard, play hard. It was we work really hard together because we're passionate about this product, because we want to make sure that we're wowing the customer. We're doing something that's going to make their lives better. But we also want to, celebrate our accomplishments. We also want to take time out in the middle of the day to go on a bike ride or go on a run, because that human connection is, what allows us to do the things that we do. And so, I think that's part of, for me, what a family business was about. It was about being able to make decisions that maybe weren't the best for business short term, but they were best for business long term. It was about making decisions that were best for the customer because that was the right thing to do. And it may have had a negative impact on financials short term, but long term, that's how we stayed sustainable. That's how we became as profitable as we were. And I'm really proud of, my father and my uncles and the decisions that they made that led us to here.
And one of these big decisions you had to make was the decision to sell.
Yeah.
So tell me about how that all came to fruition.
Yeah, the decision to sell was a big one for me. I think I had always kind of gone with the approach that we would never sell. I kind of had this vision in my mind that my kids would take over the business and their kids would take over the business, and it would just be this kind of living, breathing thing that existed within our family, and we could, have this legacy that we were all connected by. But we got to a point. We're competing against billion-dollar companies. We're, for all intents and purposes, a small family business. My dad never had an appetite for debt. I mean, he bootstrapped the company from the very beginning. We never took out a loan for anything. And that was something that we were really proud of.
Yeah.
But it also limited our ability to grow, at least inorganically. So, we got to this point, my executive team and I, every time we would sit down to strategize, we would talk about the products and projects that we needed to develop and investments that we needed to make. And every single time we were kind of, we were strapped. We had to figure out how to prioritize. And that got more difficult and more difficult. And, we were approached one day by this Swedish company, Sandvik. And, they have a lot of the same values and ethics and kind of approach to business that we do. And they said, we're really interested in the manufacturing or the digital manufacturing side of the industry. They had already entered the manufacturing industry. They're a tooling company. So we were partners with them. We knew Sandvik very well, worked with them very well. And, it was months of deliberation. My dad, my uncle, my mom, my aunt, myself, just kind of talking through the pros and cons of it. And ultimately, we decided that if we didn't join Sandvik, at some point, we were going to have to partner with somebody.
Right.
And maybe it wouldn't be somebody that we admired or respected as much as we did Sandvik. And so we made the difficult decision to sell. I think it was the right move for the company. I think joining up with a company like Sandvik, who is innovative and, they want to kind of progress the software, it gave us a lot of resources that we didn't have access to before. So, I think in terms of growth and sustainability, it was the right move. But I'll tell you, even to this day, it's something I look back on, and, it's hard to process.
Yeah. So what is a transition look like in terms of family business?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big transition to go from family business to corporate. And I think especially, and I'm sure every family business says this, but I'm certainly biased, but our company was very much driven with heart. It was driven with relationships at the forefront. It was driven, really with the focus on people. And, when you shift to a corporate entity, as much as they talk about the people and, driving with heart and all of those things, which, it's definitely there, the numbers are the driver.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what matters. And, if you're not hitting those numbers, they're going to figure out a way for you to get that, and it may not be the way that you want. So I think that, for me was big. It created restrictions. It created, it made it a lot more difficult to make decisions that I felt were best for the customer, or that I felt were best for our employees, or that I felt were best for the community. So that was a big transition. I think a lot of just a lot more structure, a lot more reporting. We probably increased our expenses by 15% because now we have to, identify our finances in a way that we can, report them up to a public company.
Right.
Those kinds of things. A lot more legal involved, that type of thing. So it was, I would say the transition from family business to corporate with still a family entity at the helm was probably as smooth as it could be. I think I still was able to kind of provide that heart and provide that culture as much as I could.
And what do you think the biggest challenges facing the CAD and software industry are?
I mean, there's so many things: AI, automated machining, feature-based machining, really just the use of data and how to manage that in a way where we're able to recommend smart tool paths or smart machining, figuring out how to do more of the computing work without user interaction. I think that's probably the biggest challenge for machining, especially when it's a direction we want to head, but it's not always a direction that the customers are comfortable with. The manufacturing industry, it's slow to change. They're very comfortable with the way that they do things. But as, the engineers and machinists that have been in the industry for the last 40 years start to retire, we're getting that next generation in, and they want things done a different way. So I think its rate of change is a big challenge. I think it's, figuring out how to use data in an effective and efficient way. And it's how to continue automation.
And are you seeing any threats with what's going on with China and other ability to get some of these parts that we need? I know, for example, in solar, we had the microchips were a big shortage. And while a small little component, it could break down an entire line of the production chain.
Right.
Were you experiencing things like that?
Interestingly, yes, of course. I think for us, though, because we're a global company, we didn't have many of those challenges, because when manufacturing goes down in one area of the world, it pops up in another. And so for us, it was always kind of smooth.
Interesting.
We obviously had a lot of restrictions when the war in Russia and Ukraine popped up. We weren't allowed to export to Russia. And so that, obviously we were scrambling, trying to make sure that we've got all of the right restrictions in place, and, that our quoting system was set up. So, there were changes. But again, for us, because we're the manufacturing of the software, we don't always experience a lot of those downturns.
That's like a partner's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Software doesn't change.
Our partner in China would, really struggle, or our partner in Russia, fortunately they sold in other territories. So, they were able to compensate a little bit, but yeah, that really hurt their business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, what has the employees' feelings been as now that you've left and it's been recent? I mean, what has your experience been with the separation?
It's been, I think with any transition, it gets rocky. The change is uncomfortable. That's, I think that's the biggest point of it, is change is really uncomfortable. Some people are able to embrace it and adapt. Some people aren't. I think, again, with the transition from me to a non-family member leader, it's been really difficult. It's kind of like mom left, right? Mom's not at home anymore, and you got to figure out how to work with, your college professor, or, somebody that you don't really have that connection with anymore.
Safety net.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety net. And, I think, again, I was really fortunate, especially as a female leader in a manufacturing industry. My dad gave me so much leeway and space and capacity to lead the way that I wanted to lead. And for me, I said to my company all the time, I don't judge the success of this company by the numbers that come in. I judge the success of this company by the number of people that smile when they walk in the door. And because for me, if I'm providing a place and a culture and an environment where employees feel inspired and connected and engaged, all the rest of it is going to happen. It's
like that theory Y management versus theory X. It's like you believe in empowering the employee to do the best job. Right? They will do the best job if you give them the opportunity to succeed versus that, everyone's going to take advantage and we have to, scrutinize and control.
It's like they're operating on a place based of empowerment and inspiration as opposed to a place based on like fear of retribution or fear of doing something wrong. I mean, to me, that's stifling, and I think you might be able to get some good short-term wins, improve cash flow that way, very short-term, but I don't see that as a long-term sustainable.
Yeah, and it makes me think about just one of the things we've been noticing after COVID, right? That no one's going back to work. And part of me is like, well, where did all the people go?
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's that the change of that they're looking for flexibility. The employees want that connection. They want to work with a purpose-driven brand. They want to be empowered, and they want flexibility.
Right.
And if they can't get those things, then they're seeking other types of career paths that were unforeseen.
Right. And interestingly, so I think management has become more important than ever in this time with the flexibility working from home, because if you're coming into the office and you have a bad manager, well, you still have the perks of being in the office. You still have the water cooler time, connecting with other, peers and employees, and you've got other managers to talk to. You kind of, it's a little bit diffused. But now working from home, you don't have as many interactions. You don't have as many things to say, oh, okay, well, it's okay because I at least get this, and this out of my job. And so I think managers, they have to step up. They have to be great managers now to be able to manage this whole work from home and, be very intentional with how they create connections with their employees. Because, I think human connection to me is what drives this world. It's what we're here for. It's to make those connections. And, if you don't feel like you have that, in your career or in your job, it's not going to be a long-term place for you.
What did you do over COVID to create this experience for your team?
It evolved every single year. I remember when COVID hit, and it was 3 days and everybody was home with a computer station, online and running. We barely missed a beat. It was so impressive. We were fortunate because we had already started to embrace remote work. So we had some of the tools we needed. We had some of the processes. So we were really lucky. But when it all happened, as soon as everybody was home, I reached out to every single employee individually and, just checked on them. Not even work related, just like, how are you doing mentally and emotionally? I wanted people to know that just because we're not in the office doesn't mean that I don't care. I'm reaching out to you as a mom, as a, human that's going through this collective experience. So that was one thing we did. Each team kind of created their own subculture. There were online happy hours that people would do. There were actually one of my favorite things is our chief experience officer created Friday afternoon trivia. And so anybody from the company could join, and it was, 4:00 on Friday. So it's kind of like a free hour at the end of the work week. And it was a different topic every single week. And he would get up and MC it online, and everybody got to play.
Fun.
And oh my God, it was such an awesome way for people to connect with each other, but not work-based, to kind of let off some steam. And I think that's so important. Especially when you deal with like a complex work environment like manufacturing and CAD/CAM software, it's, it can get really head heavy.
Yeah.
It gets heavy. So to be able to do that, that was something that was really special for us.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So what is your one tip to the new owners?
To the new owners, I think my tip is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think it's so easy to kind of forget that it's a collection of people and not just a business. It's every single one of our employees has something unique to bring to the table. And, when you create an environment where they feel safe, they feel appreciated, they feel connected, they're going to bring up their unique ideas, things that you haven't thought of or hadn't considered. And not just that, we've got people that have been at the company, been in the industry for 40 years, the knowledge, the expertise, that they are able to provide is unparalleled. And so I think for me, I would just say, remember that it's about the people. They're the ones that got us to this point, they're the ones that are going to get us, to the next 40 years.
Yeah, it really makes me think a lot about the idea when someone buys a restaurant, and they bought it because it's a thriving restaurant and they have the loyal customers and they have this great experience. And then they start making small changes. Oh, we're going to change the wine list, or oh, maybe if we add this dish to this recipe, it'll be better. Right. And then what ends up happening is those loyal customers stop coming. Right. And then all of a sudden your restaurant that you remembered isn't what you remember about it. Right. And it's so common that can happen. So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
It's a good question. Right now, I mean, I spent, really the beginning of both my kids' lives at work. Traveling all the time. I missed out on a lot, and no regrets. I'm so grateful for the career that I've had and that time. But right now, I'm going to spend a little time with my kids. We're going to do some traveling. We're going to, take them out of school next year and view the world a little bit. And so, just kind of resetting, figuring out what else I can do next that creates an environment where people feel safe and happy and connected.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah,
to learn more about Meghan, you can visit her on LinkedIn. And stay tuned next week on the Covert Code as we interview another fascinating person with a topic of interest. Aloha.